Mr. Crowner.
I move to approve the minutes of January 18th.
Further discussion? All in favor? It's 7 in favor and 2 absent.
6. Oh, 7.
Thank you. It's 7:05. We have we're fortunate to have Niels LaCour here from University of Massachusetts.
Dennis Winter, the Director of Planning.
I'm sorry?
Dennis Winter, the Director of Planning, is going to give the presentation.
Oh, okay. Dennis,
I'm happy to be back in the room.
I don't know, can we take a vote? I'd like to vote that Neil should give the presentation. He'd probably do a little bit better job than me.
well, Dennis, why don't you come on up from UMass to speak to us about the UMass Draft Master Plan.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your time tonight. I'm Dennis Swinford, Director of Campus Planning at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. We have some of my colleagues here with me tonight. I'd like to introduce, you probably know most of them. Ludmila Pavlovna is in our campus planning group. Niels is in our campus planning group. And we also have Nancy Buffon and Lisa Queenie from our University Relations. Is that good? Is that a good title? With us here tonight. So we're glad to be here, glad to be invited. Would like to spend maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes going through a presentation, and I'm more than happy to stop and have you engage in a discussion, questions as we go through. But at the same time, a lot of the times, if you don't mind me being able to say, I'm going to get to that in a minute, that's perfectly okay if we just stop each other and go into a dialogue. So we started the process about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and the agenda tonight is really to quickly go through your vision and purpose for our planning effort, the existing conditions quickly in terms of what we thought about our campus as a whole, the evolution of the plan, and then the long-term framework. And then the last piece is really the piece that is most important to us at this point in time, because it's the first parts of the plan that really help us meet the vision for the year 2020. Chancellor Holub, when he came in, put together the framework of excellence. We used that for our policy, our academic policy and institutional policy for the master plan. And he clearly states there that he'd like Amherst to be at a position to be invited into the AAU, and then also continue to be the Commonwealth's flagship campus, and recognize that by the state of Massachusetts and our citizens. So really the purpose of the master plan for us, for the campus, was really 4 main points. And the first one is that we make a lot of decisions about our facilities on a daily basis. And we spend money. There is a lot of capital money that is committed to the campus. And what we want to be able to do is to make sure that those short-term decisions really build into something. And when we're done, at the end of the day, it is supported by a long-term vision for the physical campus. The second point is really to be able to bring up the quality of the campus, to make sure that the function and the look and feel, if you will, of the campus is really in concert or reciprocal, if you will, with the academic mission. If you're going to be at the top of institutions in the world, you need to look like you're part of that group. Then the third is really, to some extent, to create a process, and within the process, to create a framework of planning. So a planning process, a planning framework in which people understand why decisions are made on campus. That, in fact, people walk around our community of learners, if you will, understand where we're headed physically. And that was one of the purposes of the plan. And then the fourth is maybe the most important, and that is to be able to make our case for more money, and both at the Commonwealth level and at the donor level, so that we can go to a donor and say, look, we have a plan. This is the plan. Would you please be a part of it? We are. All of this is going to come together and be part of something bigger. So please participate. The map here is really a composite of constraints, if you will, opportunities. I think the conclusion to this is that the campus, the yellow circle is a 20-minute walking distance. It is, we are a residential campus. We want to be able to keep most of our academic endeavors within that radius, if we can. The campus has certain, I would say, boundaries or natural conditions that keep us, and I think in a good way, keep us contained. Prexy's Ridge, if you will, on the east, the steep topography and the natural features of that geological feature. Then the Mill River, its associated floodplains. The pink on this map represents soils that are not, as you can see, it's not impossible to build in the pink, but they are soils that are certainly difficult to build in and expensive because of the clay, the type of clay that's there requires special footings or pre-settlization for the foundation. So the pink is also a difficult place for the campus to expand into. Obviously to the south, we have our host community and our neighbors that keep us from really expanding a lot to the south, and then to the north, obviously, neighbors again, and wetlands associated with natural features to the north. Take all of that away, the conclusion is there's a set amount of land that we can build on, and we would want to build on. We also looked at existing open space on the campus. We looked at views because as we went through the process, a lot of people, many of the people that participated said, look, one of the key aspects is our geographical location here in the Pioneer Valley, the views out to the ridges, the views into the campus, and that's something that we have tried to enhance and improve on. Our existing land use, we have a land use pattern that is very zoned, if you will, Euclidean, if we can use that word to describe, big areas of housing, big areas of academic spaces, big areas of what we use as athletic spaces, and not very much, not a mixed-use environment in terms of richness. Our building condition, about a third of our buildings are in poor condition. We have worked in the master plan to really go back and help support buildings that we want to keep on the campus for quite a long time. I have a slide coming up showing buildings that we consider of historic interest and we want to keep on the campus. Some of the buildings here in red are definitely buildings that we are going to demolish just because they are no historic value. They're in a great location for a better building. So our buildings of historic interest, if you've been on campus, you probably can name many of them: Chapel, Goodell, South College, Draper, to name a few. The Stockbridge corridor, where the Stockbridge House is, and the older structures in that part of the campus. We have continued to carry those on into the master plan, and many of them we have proposed additions to, so it helps create more functionality for those buildings and at the same time saving them. Our parking is really distributed in very small, in a lot of small distributed, widely distributed lots. We have, in the master plan, looked at consolidating those lots, creating building spaces as we go, building sites as we go in the core of the campus, and adding structured parking at the edges along the loop road. But the interesting piece about the parking is that if you were to consolidate all the surface parking lot on campus, there's 96 acres of surface parking, and you can see that how that relates to the core of the campus. So there's quite a resource there for the campus to continue to grow and to grow efficiently and effectively into the future and in a more compact manner, if you will. Many of you may have known that we do still have a web-based survey that we used. It's our likes and dislikes. You're able to go on, put a thumbs up, and then it asks you why you liked the site and why you didn't. So this is, this we like to be able to say, these are the things our campus community and people that have logged on and told us, these are the things that people like. And the green are the gradation basically shows where we have gotten the most hits, if you will. So quite the lawn, the pond, kind of the central open space is where we've gotten a lot of people logging in and saying that they really liked that area. But in contrast to that, we're able to say, what don't you like about the campus? And the planning effort has enhanced and saved what people like about the campus, and we hope that we have created a plan that begins to take care of things that people don't like about the campus. And here in general, we, most of the people's comments in terms of dislikes have been around the quality of student space in the campus center, the old power plant which we're tearing down, and some of and just some of the, mostly the quality of the interior spaces on campus has been a lot of comments from the people. The evolution of the plan, we collected ideas from everybody on the campus. We created alternatives from those ideas. We created a set of combined alternatives, then a preferred direction, and we're here tonight with the draft plan, and we're still collecting ideas, changes that we need to make to the plan, and hopefully soon we'll have the ability to go to the chancellor and say, we've completed the process, we have a plan that we would like you to adopt as one of the key capital planning policy documents for the campus. We looked at previous plans as we went through. Many of the plans held really good ideas. Ellis Way is one of them, so this is one of the great ideas, one of the great form-giving ideas on the campus that has been there in the past. We're going to try to strengthen that and include that in the plan going forward. And then this notion of a view shed coming out of the campus and going to the northwest, into the mountain range, and looking to the northwest is something that has shown up in a few plans, and we thought that was a great form-giving open space that helps us organize future growth in the northwest part of the campus. The guiding principles that we used for the planning effort was really to take a long-term 50-year perspective. So what you'll see tonight is really something that is a capacity. If, in fact, the campus were ever to grow, this is how we could grow. We don't have policy that says we're going to grow this much, but we have shown how the campus can stay compact and have a capacity to continue to change and to grow as we need within the next 50 years time frame. Create growth opportunities in the core. So we really did look at creating more of a compact core, more density in the core, and creating, I would say, more vitality on the campus as we do that. One of the other guiding principles is to create a framework of open space that then allows us to understand where new buildings should go. So instead of siting buildings and then have the residual open spaces happen because you've sited a building there, actually have the open space inform where buildings go, so that we have a framework of open space that include courtyards, pedestrian spines, and this notion of complete streets. Build campus, not just buildings. That is really, really important to us because there are a lot of other things that go into building a campus than just buildings, infrastructure, circulation, parking, open space, and public art, all of those things that we want to do as a campus that are just much more than just building buildings. Untangle the vehicular and pedestrian circulation is something that we have tried to do in the master plan. Create a plan or create a campus that is actually a mixed-use environment that is active and vibrant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 12 months out of the year. So we are looking at trying to create a campus that supports more summer activity as we go. It's a great way to bring resources in over the summer, and it's a wonderful place to be in the summer. So we are trying to make the campus and support that activity in the master plan. Unify the academic campus. We have some buildings that are our academic buildings that are on the edge of the campus and not necessarily right in the core. Marks Meadow is the best example of that. And we have looked at and used as a guiding principle, create a plan that actually helps unify those facilities and make them feel like they're on campus. And then the last we've talked about a little bit, and that is respect the planning heritage and our building heritage. So in creating a campus, and what we mean by building campus, there's a set of systems, an open space system, a pedestrian circulation system, roadways, bikeways, and land use that all go together as a set of systems that help create a campus. This is a diagram that represents what we have determined to be kind of the carrying capacity of the campus for the long-term future, 50, 60 years. It's a diagram that says, here's the capacity of what we think could go here. And then how do we back off of that and look at, okay, if this is where we want to get to, what do we need to do over the next 10 to 15 years to start implementing the plan? But embedded in this, the brown being existing buildings that stay or remain, and the red are new buildings. But embedded in this long-term vision is a series of systems. Open space being the first one. So our open space system today is characterized by very, very, I would say, high-quality open spaces. There are a few that are, I would say, world-class open spaces, but they aren't very well connected. There isn't really a system, and it's not consistent throughout the campus. We had one student say, you know, sometimes it feels like a campus and sometimes it doesn't. So what we've tried to do in the master plan is to create a system of open spaces that have walkways that are connected and pedestrian corridors that are connected and are part of the open space system, roadways that are connected and part of the open space system. We have new open space corridors that reach out into the natural areas, into Prexy's Ridge, and create view sheds to those natural areas, and to some extent bring those natural areas into the campus on the north. We've also tried to create open spaces that connect and help us understand how we can interface better with the town of Amherst to the south. Pedestrian spines. Our pedestrian spine system is also to some extent in places very clear and understandable and legible. We are looking at building upon that and creating a network of pedestrian spines on campus that are coincidental with the open space system. So we have a really high quality pedestrian environment on the campus as we go forward. Roadways. One of the interesting pieces of our plan is we looked carefully at how we could create opportunities to provide capacity for cars to move around campus and take some of the load off of roads that are now 2 lanes in each direction. So Commonwealth Avenue is a facility that has 2 lanes in the same direction. Massachusetts Avenue is also a facility that has 2 lanes of traffic going in the same direction. That condition on both of those roads is the most unsafe pedestrian condition we have on campus. It is a system that's built for the car. Cars move faster. They don't necessarily look for pedestrians, and it isn't a balanced, if you will, environment where everybody can kind of be there as an equal player. So as we look at the future, we look at ways in which we can create a system that provides alternatives so that we can begin to take away some of those lanes along Massachusetts Avenue and Commonwealth Avenue and provide circulation on the campus in other ways. So if you look at, backspace. Um, So this is Mullins Center. This is Mullins Drive, extending Mullins Drive up and providing access from the back to that large parking supply. Also giving another way for Mullins Center to exit after an event. Gives us the ability to change the corridor along Commonwealth Avenue to one that allows us to put sidewalks on both sides, bicycle lanes on both sides, and then 2 travel lanes for cars in that corridor. Commonwealth Avenue, Massachusetts Avenue is now a boulevard. We are suggesting that the north side, which is actually the eastbound lanes of that road, westbound, okay, westbound. Thank you, guys. The westbound lanes of that road are removed, and that creates a condition that we have more land within the core. We can use that space for building, and at the same time create a street that is really a 21st century campus street that has uses on both sides, that is built and is used by pedestrians, bicycles, cars, and it is much more, I would say, fitting gateway for the campus on both ends, both the east and the west ends of that entrance into campus. So what do we mean about complete streets? And a picture, to some extent, sometimes helps a lot. We have really pushed and created what we think is a good typical cross-section for North Pleasant Street, understanding that is the towns, and but what we would begin to think of as North Pleasant Street as a cross-section would be one that had sidewalks, a boulevard, a planting strip, a bicycle lane, a travel lane, bicycle lane, and then the same on both sides. This is a very safe environment for the pedestrian. It provides a great facility for bicycles, and it also allows cars and a great, to a large extent, a great capacity for cars to move on campus. Again, to some extent, looking at North Pleasant Street and thinking about the future of North Pleasant Street, we have done, I would say, there's been a lot of discussions around North Pleasant Street. It's actually open, an open issue that I'd like to get your opinions on tonight. But we've looked at North Pleasant Street. We know that there has been in the past discussions to close North Pleasant Street. On the piece that goes through the campus. We are still, to some extent, having those discussions, but at the same time, we really do feel like an approach that we would like to take with North Pleasant Street is one in which we begin to take away our destinations along North Pleasant Street. So if North Pleasant Street is actually serving a parking lot, or serving a service area, that we begin to remove that from that corridor. So we begin to dial down the demand for use along that corridor. We also, at the same time, create an environment where the pedestrian here, conceptually, crosswalks make it much more of a clear pedestrian environment, design it for the pedestrians, and also at the same time design it for the bus and transit use. It's a great transit facility for us. It serves a great purpose for the students that are coming from the other 4 colleges that take classes here. We are a recipient of many of those students that come here and take other classes. We actually have more students coming to the UMass Amherst campus taking classes than UMass Amherst students going to other places within the 5-college system. So that facility really does provide a great service for the campus. And right now in the master plan, we are proposing, with the help of the town, that we begin to look at redesigning that to a place where we can have bicycle lanes on either side, a travel lane on either side, and then great cutouts and places for the buses to pull in. So this is a cross-section of, that's a plan of a typical bus transit stop along North Pleasant Street. Mass Ave, we have looked at Mass Ave, doing the same thing there. The difference here is there may be a need for a turn lane in Massachusetts Avenue, depending upon where certain facilities end up going. Personally, I'd like to be able to get rid of the turning lane and have it only be a two-lane road. It makes it narrower. It makes it a lot easier to cross, a lot clearer if it's just a two-lane facility. But we are looking at including a turn lane within that cross-section. Bikeways, Town of Amherst has a great bike system. We would really like to be able to supplement that as we go forward. The North Amherst Bike Connector is something that we're working on together. And I think that's a great project, and we should do that. We will have the bicycle lanes along the loop roads, so Commonwealth Avenue, Massachusetts Avenue, North Pleasant Street, Governor's Drive will all have bicycle facilities within that corridor. The interesting thing about bicycles is that we're not going to have any dedicated bicycle lanes that go through the middle of campus. That once you get on the campus and you're on a paved area or on a paved area on the campus and you're on a bike, you can continue to ride your bike. It may be a Saturday morning in the summer and you can go as fast as you want through the campus and it's perfectly okay. But at the same time, if it's noon in September and it's during class time, you may not be able to ride your bike. So we are creating mixed-use pedestrian ways that the bicycle, when you're in this zone, the bicyclers have to take responsibility, get off their bikes if they have to, and act responsibly around the pedestrians. Our transportation consultants have said that at your physical environment today, you will be creating more conflict if you begin to put in single-use facilities through the campus. That there'll be more places where bicycles think they can go fast, and you'll have much more conflict between the pedestrian and the bicyclers than if you just create a mixed-use environment for them on the campus. Our land use is really going to a strategy of creating something that's much more mixed use, bringing common uses, community uses, campus uses into the core of the campus, and focusing those around the pond and the lawn. So you almost have a central park, if you will, of the pond and the lawn, and then common uses that we all go to, we all need around that. So the library, the student union, the student center, actually the Fine Arts Center is blue here, which is academic, but I think a case could be made that should also be red because it certainly is a community use that we all use, and even the region uses that as a community use when there are shows there. So the concept is a much more mixed-use environment in the core of the campus, keep students coming back into the evening, keep the core more lively and vibrant. Here we are today. In 2010, I guess I need, not necessarily today, but a couple of years ago when we started the planning effort, the campus was at 10.8 million gross square feet. And the uses were distributed, as illustrated here in the pie chart, about a third academic. That includes research space, about a third residential, and about a third everything else. That's interesting because the residential pie piece of that is a big piece for us. There are a lot of students on campus. It's a commitment that we have made to be a residential campus, and it is something that we focus on and think about a lot. This space now accommodates the 24,300 students, about 8,000 faculty, and then the 12,500 beds in the system. Now, when Commonwealth Honors College is constructed, that will automatically go up to be about 1,400 beds. So, in 2020, where do we think the campus, where we would want to be. What do we need to have happen to achieve the vision that the chancellor has? So we have this policy out there. We have this academic policy that we'd like to bring more students in, and we'd like to bring more research in. We'd like to have more tenured professors and the faculty and the staff to support that. So with that, we have created a plan that supports 27,700 students, about 8,800 faculty, and the 1,400 beds, which keeps us at the same percentage of beds that we have today. To do that, this is the campus today. To do that, what we've done is shown the facilities that we would need to build on campus to accommodate that. These are new buildings. We are considering the Commonwealth Honors College that's under construction as an existing condition on this plan, but that is something that helps us meet that vision because it's helping to add students, add beds, bed supply for our students. The new academic classroom building, which is the building right here north of the pond near the campus center, is also a building that is soon to be under construction and also as an existing condition. So let me walk through this in some detail, and you can ask questions later, but we have Bartlett Hall, which is currently in this location just south of Goodell. That building isn't lasting as long as we would have liked. It was constructed in a way that isn't as permanent as we had hoped. It's literally falling apart. We are in the process of creating new space to get the users out of there and then demolish that building. One of the near-term projects that we're working on is actually an addition to South College. That project will allow us to save South College. It will provide circulation internally to South College systems that old building needs, and then provide the space for it to be a more functional 21st century academic building, and saving a heritage building at the same time. The Hills replacement space. Hills is also a building that is planned to be demolished. The users in that building include the School of Education, some users that are part of our health systems are in that building, and then our landscape architecture, urban design urban planning program is in that building also. We are looking at combining landscape architecture, the landscape architecture department, the art and architecture program, and some faculty members from the building and technologies program into a building into a new building that we are considering sites next to Studio Arts, possibly in addition to French. We're in kind of site selection process now for that new building, but we hope, we do hope to be able to find a site for that kind of within the arts district, near the Fine Arts Center, near Studio Arts, and keep that concept going. New Life Sciences building is actually the third piece of the sausage of the Life Sciences building that's under construction. That third piece is kind of within this next 10 to 15 year time frame. A new academic and student life building is this is the campus garage at this location. Behind it today is the power plant, the old power plant. We are planning to demolish the old power plant, build a structured parking deck that in addition to the deck that is already there in the ravine, bringing up the grade and then building a building on top of that. So this building is on top of a parking structure that allows us to put approximately 500 spaces into the middle of the campus, parking spaces into the middle of the campus. The other interesting part about that building is that it's a multimodal center where we hope to have regional buses come in, our shuttle system come in, and create a spot where people can go and change modes easily. The new physical sciences building, possibly in addition to Draper Hall, is kind of within this time frame. An addition for the School of Public Health and Health Sciences that is Topman here, in addition to Topman. Campus life uses include a new student union addition or renovation of the existing student union, possibly a renovation of the Hamden dining commons for campus life uses, a disc golf course in the Orchard Hill area, and then a new university health services facility that we are still looking at sites for that, but I think the preferred site is here along Mass Ave, near a large population of our residents in Southwest and in the new in the new Honors College complex, and also easy to get to from the roadway systems for our other users. Support facilities include the football stadium addition and the press box stadium, a Champion Center, which is an indoor practice facility for basketball, the Complete Streets program, we had talked about earlier, creating a new environment for the streets around the campus, taking some of the travel lanes out, putting bicycle lanes in, and creating a better mixed-use corridor is something that we'd like to do as soon as we possibly can, and do it and have it happen for all of them within this time frame. An interesting story, we took this to the chancellor and his board, and we had only a piece of this idea in the first phase. We didn't, want to overstep it, and they said, that's such a good idea, well, let's try to put it in. We don't necessarily have the funding now, but it's such a great idea, it's something that we really think is important. Let's put this all in kind of this piece that we'd like to do together. The other pieces include the renovation of Marks Meadow for the School of Education, possibly an electrical substation up in Tilson Farms. This is a dot that indicates a structural testing facility that would be located up in Tilson Farms. The other pieces are a yellow dot here in our visitor center represents a project that we are working on, and it is a solar panel project that will be built on a part of that surface parking lot. It will look a lot like a gas station canopy, hopefully a little bit better than that, Steve. If Steve has his way, it'll look a little bit better than just a gas station canopy. But it will provide enough. It will provide enough energy for the visitor center to go offline. That will create enough solar power for that facility to go offline and quit and being powered by an alternative energy. We're also putting a solar testing facility over in Hadley. That will help us show farmers in the region that you can put solar panels up and continue to use the land underneath it for agricultural uses. Other open space improvements I think that are really quite important for the campus include the Stockbridge corridor, finishing that that piece of a past plan. Really implementing that as a pedestrian corridor. The Hicks Way becomes a really important pedestrian corridor for the campus as buildings are improved and built kind of along that area. So Hicks corridor is something that we are looking at doing as an open space improvement project. And then the first piece of bringing back Ellis Way, that arc that you see on the campus, and many of the plans, actually from one of the very first plans, that arc has always been there, but kind of bringing back that important corridor for the campus as a pedestrian corridor is something that we'd like to do in that time frame. So with that, how do we we've created a way for people to interact and to tell us what they think about the plan, what they like about the plan, and pardon me, and you go on our site and it says, do you want to participate in the Master Plan Explorer? It has this introduction, if you will, that it kind of explains the planning process we went through, how we listened to ideas, and then what the process was. To some extent, a very traditional process, meeting, talking to people, getting ideas, and to some other extent, a much more technologically advanced process that can allow people to give us comments and leave comments about the master plan anytime that they want. So you're able to go through the plan, click on a project, read about it, understand kind of what we're thinking about at that point in time, and then leave a comment. Tell us what you like about the plan and what you may not like about the plan. So in kind of real time, you can click on and you can see the project areas highlight, and then the description come, and then it gives you the description, and then you can click and add a comment and submit it to us. So this is open. It's open to the public. It's open to everybody in Amherst. It's open to somebody in China if they have the website. And we watch it. We have gotten some great comments, and we are anticipating answering those comments in the final plan. In much the way, if you're familiar with the MIPA process in Massachusetts, you kind of respond to comments, and that's what we have done here. So it's not, what I guess the most important message here is that it's not just a black box. We are listening to it. We are taking those comments into account as we go forward, creating the final master plan. So that's what we have for you tonight. And I think I did a relatively good job at going through, but I probably left some things out. So if you have any comments, questions, please, we're here to answer them, or at least work through an answer with you.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I certainly learned a lot from it, and I know we're looking forward to asking a few questions about this. I'll start out.
Sure.
I was wondering if you could just say a couple words about the North Amherst Bike Connector.
Yes. Let's do it. In terms of let me explain a bit, other than that flip answer. It is a wonderful project. Let me just get back here to a plan. We have the ability, from our standpoint, we have the ability to work with the town at creating a connection from the campus up to North Amherst. On what is now, it may end up being an alignment that is a gravel road. We have a gravel road there now. We have an alignment there that we could certainly improve to the point where it is a mixed-use connector from North Amherst. Where it goes from there and the alignment of that, I think that we're working on that with you, and would continue to be interested in advancing that and getting money to get it funded and get it built.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Croner?
Is there any plans for long-term change to Haggis Mall, or is that staying the way it is?
There are, we have, yes, there are plans for Haggis Mall, and let me just back through this, if you will, for a second. And get to the kind of the longer term vision. So a lot of comments in working through this with people on the campus have been kind of the lack of vitality of Haggis Mall. And that it's just kind of there, that it is an open space that is kind of grand and creates a beautiful view shed to the Fine Arts Center, but at the same time isn't really used that much. So what we have suggested in the plan is that we create the ability for the regional buses to go someplace else, take the parking and the cars out of that, because I think that that really is one of the key deterrents to making a great open space. If there's cars in it, you know, it's not the greatest open space in the world. So we have suggested that that loop be removed. The buses, the regional buses, are accommodated someplace else. The parking is accommodated someplace else, and it becomes much more of a pedestrian open space. Along with that, if you look and see that box right there is kind of in the middle of Haggis Mall, and it creates a condition that makes Haggis Mall a different dimension as you look at it from the street. As you look at it and go by, it brings and creates, I think, in our mind, an urban space that is much more pedestrian in scale than it is today. But the use of that building is really important to us. And it isn't a common space. It's kind of a figural important spot on campus. So what could that be? We've dreamed about it being a museum, a place for our collections to be displayed, some type of common facility that would showcase UMass and be open to the public and visitors from around the world. So that is that's kind of our long-term vision for Haggis Mall, is to kind of recast it to something that is much more, I would say, New England college character than grand southwestern architectural vistas.
So more like a quad.
Yeah, so much more of a quad than a vista to a piece of architecture. See if I can get Steve to say something.
Mr. Rosner?
No, if you could go back to a couple of the slides, I think it said land use.
Yes.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask about the gateway area. I noticed on those slides, the Hadley Farm was sort of blocking out the gateway area so that we couldn't see what the projected land use was going to be in those areas. Perhaps
The gateway area, so
I know that there's all these studies going on, but perhaps you want to speak a little bit about that area?
we are in support of the town's effort to create a connection along along that corridor, and we support the effort of that being residential in nature, and that it be a nice transition between the campus and the community. So here, if you just take a look, what we have suggested in our plan is that there would be townhouses built along that street, creating a street edge, and then parking, parking for that facility maybe behind it, but low, low scale, residential in nature, apartments, if you will, something that would be akin to maybe the North Village apartments, be developed there as kind of our desires for that piece of the gateway. So the property that we have control over, we're saying we'd really like to be able to build residential there. That's the land use that we have, that we've determined, that we've thought about it using that piece of property for, which is, pardon me? Oh, and then this piece here, Lou? So as you come up, and this is Mass Ave, this is a new rotary. Right today, there's the big sweeping arc that comes down. What we've suggested is actually Mass Ave be realigned into a rotary. That becomes more of a T, and then we create, then there's this great kind of site that's there that has been assembled over years of taking down university apartments, that be in the long term, some type of gateway use and a parking structure associated with that. So in the plan, that land use is a mixed use, undetermined land use, but with parking behind it, to create kind of a gateway function for our campus at that location. So, and we're working with the town on a transit study. We're meeting next week to talk about it with your staff, and we hope to be able to come out and talk more in detail about how the gateway study and the vision for that, those changes within the town work with what we'd like to do on campus, and do the corresponding planning around that that allows us to accommodate the traffic, improve the neighborhoods, and help create what I think is a much nicer interface between the town of Amherst and our campus than we have today. A lot of people consider the parking lots that are there something that they'd like to have stay for various reasons. I just think that we have an opportunity really to create a street frontage and a better interface between the neighborhood and the campus on the south end of the campus.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed there's some other people wanting to ask some questions, but I have a follow-up question related to what
Yep.
Dennis was just speaking about, if my colleagues wouldn't mind. Thank you. Continuing on that thought about transit, I'm wondering if you had considered an even more drastic approach than as far as you've gone in terms of limiting auto traffic, say, for example, creating satellite parking lots and then some sort of public means of moving people around campus so that generally, except for maybe a couple of major streets, there really wouldn't be autos on campus. So I noticed you had a huge, what was it, 94 acres of parking? Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you what percentage of the total landmass that is, and if you could reduce that percentage by eliminating most of the parking on campus and put it into satellite areas, that could become a sort of a component.
I think it's a fabulous idea, and we are from a sustainability standpoint, I think that's something that we continue to look at doing. Did we do it this time around? No. And the no to that is today and into the near future, the campus actually has enough surface parking spaces. We have a surplus built already on campus. So it's just not where our population wants it to be. So to some extent, we are looking at creating a satellite system, but it would be a satellite system where you might come and park in the back of kind of in the back of this lot or down by the stadium, and then get shuttled to campus. It hasn't. It hasn't. The parking supply problem hasn't been an issue. Parking location problem has.
Okay, I just have one comment, then I'll
Yeah.
go on. I noticed this is a 50-year plan, and I would suggest that in 50 years from now, that I'm somewhat surprised that you're not moving toward that, at least by 50 years. And secondly, you're probably aware that there's now a town transportation plan that's going to be evolving for the whole town, not just the Gateway area, and hopefully we will be able to coordinate with the campus about transit.
Be fabulous.
throughout the town.
I must say, when we certainly don't preclude those opportunities to have that happen. I mean, it's a fabulous planning idea. We can get support around it with the town and make it happen. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
I'm just going to stop for just a second. We have a scheduled appearance at 8 o'clock, so I think we can probably go over by 15 minutes, just if the 8 o'clock person just has notice to them. We're going to go a little
They're out in the halls. I see them pacing.
Okay.
There are butters, actually, too.
Next.
So I think that this is a great opportunity to talk about kind of areas of collaboration between the, the planning efforts on campus and the planning efforts in town. So there's a couple that have been mentioned, like the Gateway Project.
Yep.
What happens with North Pleasant.
Yep.
But there's another one is the housing issue. So if you do the math, there'll be an additional 2,000 students, or I think it's 2,000 students needing beds. I think that's right?
Yeah.
So there's 12,000 on campus. There'll be 14,000 on campus, but then 28,000 students. But 2,000 students needing beds, which equals 500 units, assuming 4 students per unit. But rather than seeing that as a problem, maybe that's an opportunity that the two groups can work together, because student housing, off-campus student housing, is so much treated like a nuisance or a problem. But actually, I think it's a kind of a, really a great opportunity to work together to figure out what that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what form that might take.
I'd love to hear your comments, though, Connie.
I'll wait for my turn.
I'm done. Yeah.
I know.
Mr. O'Keefe, I think, had his hand up, and Ms. Kruger.
So my comments were along exactly that direction as well. So it looks like, apart from Commonwealth College, which you're treating as an existing condition, there doesn't seem to be any plan for on-campus expansion of housing facilities in the immediate term, sort of the first phase going out to 2020.
Yeah, and let me explain to some extent why. There is certainly a need for housing on campus. There's certainly a need for quality graduate student housing. I mean, as a big kind of desire for the campus, and that would be, kind of better quality graduate student housing. The place that we are at now is we are faced with a bond cap. It's imposed by the system. We can only have a set amount of bond debt, if you will, outstanding, as it relates to our operating income. So we have other things that help educate our students and create research opportunity for the campus that we really need to use the rest of our bonding capacity to build those facilities. We've used a big piece of our bonding capacity to do the Commonwealth Honors College. So the campus, and just looking at it from priority, equity, if you will, has, and to some extent, desire to not, to kind of stay at the same percentage that we are now, hasn't put any additional housing in the near-term plan. Long-term plan has other places where housing could go. We would like to look at ways of creatively looking at, collaboratively looking at ways of working with the town developers, others, to help meet that need for us in the near term. So we do have other places on the plan that housing could go. They could go now. We could do them now if we had other ways to do it other than have it be in our bonds as part of our books, if you will. Yes.
Is it? I'm sorry. This relates to what he was just saying.
I'm gonna call on Ms.
Sure,
Kruger
go ahead.
first.
Waiting, but it.
Go ahead.
Although I do have two things that aren't housing related, and then I wanted to join in on the housing comment, and my colleague Bruce too. Just the quick things. What's happening with the admissions building off of Olympia Drive? Because that doesn't make. Is it in your plan?
You don't think that?
Rather than
I
make-
just giggle because it's
I don't
it's
get
one
it.
of those
I don't get it.
anomalies.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to get emissions down on campus, and we have talked about kind of where you visit the campus, how that starts, what's what's the experience. So yes, getting emissions down, and we're currently working on getting it back on campus in the near term.
Because that does seem like a shoot yourself in the foot location. But maybe that's a segue to what I was thinking about the housing conversation, and my colleagues are I think, making really good points. And in your presentation, I know from the campus's perspective, the fact that you're keeping the same ratio is comforting for you, but the impact on the community is by the net increase of students, faculty, and staff, not by maintaining the same proportionate amount of housing on campus. And it's a big issue and it's a complicated issue, and there isn't an easy answer. So I think the collaboration, the looking at it from a number of different vantage points makes sense. I've had the opportunity to work on this issue at different times in my professional career with the campus. And so admissions is up off of Olympia Drive. The town moved forward on an affordable housing development initiative up there many years ago, well before your time. The campus was joined with the town in a mutual planning effort to have graduate family housing next to community housing. And what often happens, the best of intentions, you get a new president, game's over, new game starts. There are ways to collaborate, and I do understand about the bond cap, but there's creative solutions to do that with other kinds of financing models. Different times it's been explored. So looking at other ways to finance on campus.
I think that we're completely...
I'm actually someone who doesn't believe all university housing should happen on campus. I think in the right location, at the right scale, with the right management plan, it's a benefit to both the university and the community to build student, graduate student, faculty and staff housing around the perimeter of the campus in a sensible way, where we have a campus village center area. And I think there's a great synergy in that, but it's complicated and there's political pressure points and all of that. But maybe this is the time to start a new dialogue that runs parallel to this master planning effort, so that people who are working on those issues from the town side and the campus could come together, because there is a way to get it done.
Super.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're absolutely open to those discussions and doing what we can do.
Mr. Carson.
Oh, I was just going to ask a question that somebody had at an earlier meeting, which I thought was a very good question. Is there any possibility in some university land being used somehow by a private developer for private student housing, or is there some legal problem there? That
There is
a
it's a
legal-
complicated issue.
Oh, I'm sure that would be.
It's a complicated, and it has, it's something that we should just work on together. Yes, there is a barrier, and it's a barrier that Massachusetts has that a lot of other states, legislative barrier. Yeah,
Which is
a legislative barrier that is overcome. I mean, we can overcome it, but at the same time, there are a lot of our competitors that have those tools that they can use that we're not able to use at this point in time, or at least so. Absolutely, that's part of the that's part of, you know, there's a lot of places where we could, you know, do that and would be willing to do that.
So that might be another issue where the town could work toward changing the law. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Croner.
Could you talk a little bit about, you mentioned making the campus a 24/7 place. So could you talk about, you know, there's a problem of housing students, but there's also a problem of what are they doing all night long? And so how are you going to keep them on campus? You know, what are the structures and that, especially on party nights?
Again, caveat, complicated issue. Although the piece that I think that the campus would really like to be able to do is to create co-curricular activities and choices. You know, good choices that happen in the middle of the campus. A variety, you know, kind of a variety of things that you could come back to the middle of the campus and do, rather than come, you know, go out and go out wherever you go out, or go to somebody's house and do that. We are working with Campus Life on creating kind of a near-term, long-term plan we desperately need space. I mean, that has been, like a lot of things, that has been, I don't want to use the word neglected, but when you really look at it, that piece of Campus Life hasn't been supported as much as it probably I won't go there, but looking into the future. Let's say we look in the future, and our plan is actually to provide a better mix of uses in the middle of the campus. You know, literally pool tables, bowling alleys, places to dance. You know, places to make noise. You know, and have a reason to come back instead of, you know, you walk there. I bet if we go out tonight and walk around the campus center, it's pretty quiet. The other spot that stays open and bustling is the basement of the library. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit that during the evening, when the campus is in session, that's a great spot. I mean, it really makes you feel good about the future, seeing the kids down there studying and using that, using the facility 24 hours a day. You know, you all know that our library doesn't close. And I think that's a good message to send out. You know, kind of academically, there is a learning common on the UMass Amherst campus, and we use it. But at the same time, you can't study all the time. You got to go out and do something else, right? And we're trying to supplement in the plan and in programming and working with our colleagues in campus life alternatives to bring kids and create truly an option, an alternative to coming out and being in downtown Amherst at night. So I hope that answered your question and wasn't too general, but we are certainly wanting to try to do that. And specifically, the location is, you know, the student union, the library, the campus center. I think the new academic classroom building and the associated improvements to Metawampee Lawn will be a nice improvement to the campus and to that effort. That facility will be used as much as we possibly can use it as an academic facility late into the night, and we hope that after it's being used as academic facility, maybe it can be used as a campus life facility even later into the evening or early hours of the morning.
Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Schreiber?
Something I don't know, but what's the plan for the university health services in the master plan? In other words, what's the thinking about the future of that facility?
Yes, University Health Services. It is today, it's kind of the building kind of by default still stays here in the plan. You know, that's something that can be revisited as we go through time. As much of all of these ideas will be revisited. But the plan, simply and quickly, is that it gets that site here. This is Whitmore. Thank you. Whitmore. This is the Whitmore parking lot area. So just across the street of Whitmore, that site is to some extent the preferred site for health services. There would be, you know, like I said earlier, that we feel is a nice edge location where you can get to it by emergency vehicles and people needing to drive to this if you're, you know, sick and you can't walk, and it's also accessible by bus, which our current facility isn't. But at the same time, it's there and visible from a daily, kind of a daily life standpoint for a lot of our students that live in Southwest and the Commonwealth Honors College. So this idea of wellness, if you will, is something that I think is important, and I think the University Health Center is looking at. You know, they do it now, but this being a good location for them to kind of be front and center on the campus as an important part of campus life. Did that answer your question? Yeah, that's. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. And we look forward to continuing the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're over time, Larry. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Excuse me. I'm going to shut this down because we have other people coming in. There's a, you know, they've been waiting patiently for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much for everyone from UMass for coming. We really appreciate you presenting.
like that North Pleasant has changed so much. Just a minute. So we've been here 7 years.
Good job, Nils.
It's changed so much just in the time that we've been here.
I don't think he heard you.
I don't think he did.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Just, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but, wasn't there? He's a whip, right? What's his total role is? What's his term? Yeah.
What does this go with, do you know?
Okay. We have an appearance now by
What am I-
the,
What is this going with?
by Eagle Crest property.
Publications that come out
This is regarding a zoning board of appeals matter with respect to 156 Sunset Ave. This applicant is going to be going before the ZBA to convert a dimensionally non-conforming single-family dwelling to a two-family dwelling. And I'll just give a little background, which was provided by staff, which is our role as a planning board in an advisory view of this special permit application. We have asked the applicants to come here and present their plans before us, and this is the first time that this board, as constituted, has had an advisory board, an advisory review like this. So our role here is to offer recommendations if we choose to, but our role is purely advisory here, and this is a discretionary special permit which will require for approval a unanimous vote of all 3 members of the ZBA. We would like to, if possible, offer useful recommendations about specific aspects of the site plan, including layout and design. So you can come forward, introduce yourself, and please use the microphone.
Good evening. I'm attorney Jim Heffernan at Bacon Wilson here in Amherst. Here with me is James Charawati of Eagle Crest Management. James Beadle, their property manager. Yeah. And Peter Wells from Berkshire Design Group. Part of my voice getting over a chest cold. We're here tonight for 156 Sunset Avenue. I'm just here to introduce it, and I'll let Peter Wells go over the details. As the chair said, this is just a review in your advisory capacity for the project at 156, which is a conversion from a single-family home to a two-family residence. My only addition to this is that I do believe it fits in kind of the purpose of the RG district, which calls for more medium to high-density properties near town center and between the UMass campus and town center. The overall project is interior and design, and I leave it to now Peter Wells to go over the details, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And also, just a thank you for hearing us, because you didn't have to call us here, and we appreciate our opportunity to be heard. Thanks.
Mr. Wells?
Good evening. Once again, my name is Peter Wells. I'm with the Berkshire Design Group. As James mentioned, this is a existing single family, and we're looking at converting it to a two-family. It's located at 156 Sunset Avenue. It is non-conforming now because the side yard setback is about 1.4 inches. The house sits 1.4 inches into the side yard setback of 10 feet. So the house and garage is 8'8" from the property line. So thus it makes it a non-conforming structure. Therefore, ZBA is involved. I'd like to walk through the existing conditions first and then go into what we plan on doing in terms of proposed improvements. This is a site plan showing existing conditions. Sunset Avenue runs along here. The existing structure itself, presently there's a gravel drive that comes in, and there's access in the rear for parking. The house itself has presently has 6 bedrooms. There's 4 on the first floor, and there's 2 on the lower level. There's adequate parking for 3 vehicles right off of Sunset Avenue, and presently there's adequate parking for, I believe, 4 vehicles in the rear of the parcel itself. As you can see by the photographs, the site itself has a number of mature trees that we are trying to retain, at least the deciduous trees. There are 2 pine trees that we are going to take down that are very close to the structure itself. White pine, which can be a hazard, and I'll get into that shortly. The site itself is 0.8 acres, so it's over 3/4 of an acre. Frontage is about 106 feet frontage, but the site itself is quite long, and it's quite deep. So we have a large backyard, which we are going to use for our drainage and sheet flowing drainage from our proposed parking area across the grass and into the woods in the rear. We submitted a context plan showing the neighborhood and a 1/4 mile radius around our property. It's a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units throughout the neighborhood. And there are some also commercial and higher density ones, with the university being right next door. So in context and character, going from a single family to a 2-family in this neighborhood, we feel is still keeping in character. This is a rendered site plan showing the proposed improvements. I should mention also that this hatched line here in red is an encroachment. The existing drive now, after the site was surveyed, it showed that we are encroaching on our abutting property by a few feet with the gravel driveway. So in the proposed plans, we are going to rid ourselves of that encroachment, pull back, and do everything on our property in terms of vehicular access toward the rear. So once again, Sunset Avenue, running north-south. We are retaining our existing curb cut and driveway and garage for the upper level. We are proposing a 6-car parking area in the rear with a 10-foot wide access drive. A access walkway from the parking area to the back entrance. Adequate turning area for cars that are parked here that are leaving. We have a trash and recycling bins at the rear of the driveway itself. In terms of number and parking, we're going to have 4 bedrooms on the main level, and we're proposing 4 bedrooms on the second unit on the lower level. So a total of 8 bedrooms. We are showing 8 cars, 8 spaces, 4 cars. And basically there's really 9 because 1 could park within the garage itself. And this turnaround area is also doubling as overflow parking in case people that are parents that are visiting and so forth. So this is basically an area that could house an additional 2 cars for overflow. And there's still enough area to back in and turn around. So we felt that was enough parking for this type of development. We have screened the parking with evergreen screening between the parking area and the abutting property. We have shown also a parking lot light, which is a 12-foot high light that we have provided foot candle readings for also. And there's no light pollution leaving our site whatsoever. The amount of light hitting the property line at this point is 0.1 foot candle, which is extremely low. So the light basically is lighting the parking area and access into the rear of the lower unit. There will also be a light that will be adjacent to the front door that will also shine down onto the deck. So it's dark sky compliant in terms of its lighting, and wanted to point that out. The existing house, as I mentioned, has a number of large mature trees that we are retaining throughout. Planting-wise, around the foundation, right now there's a lot of sumac, various types of sumac that have taken over, but beneath the sumac there are some shrubs there, and there's a nice blanket of periwinkle, vinca, that is located throughout this area. So what we're proposing is taking out the sumac and restoring the periwinkle beneath, but we're also proposing to add additional planting throughout the foundation. The front area, we are putting a low-growing sumac because it does do well in this area, but it's only going to get to be about 2 feet tall. Toward the rear, we are planting low bush blueberry. For this portion here, some more planting along here, and some pachysandra in this bed. So we are adding planting to the existing, but not tremendous amount, enough to create a carpet and a nice feel in terms of a different texture and color. I should mention also there's an existing Goshen stone wall that ends about here. We plan on extending that around, and that provides retainage for earth that is up against the lower portion of the house itself, but also creates a nice curvilinear natural wall, and one that so that we can build our parking area. There was a number of questions that DPW and the town engineer had, Jason Skeels. We answered those questions with a letter that addressed each one of his issues. We called him up and followed up on each one of the issues. The biggest one he had was that there's an existing sewer main that runs beneath this entire house. It's a town sewer. And Jason was under the impression that it might have been exposed in the basement area. We dug up old plans of the 1952 architecturals. That's when this house was built. And the sewer line is 30 inches below the foundation. So it's not an issue with Jason. But it does run still beneath our house, and there is an easement for that sewer line for town access. And it is quite unusual to have that condition with a house. I was amazed when I first saw the plans and said, there's a sewer under our house. And it's a sewer main too, which makes it more interesting. So we've addressed all of Jason's questions and have submitted that letter for your review also. So that's basically the plan in a nutshell, going through some of the highlights. I do have the architecturals, both existing and proposed. I'm not going to really get into much detail with those, just to say that the exterior of the house is not going to change in look or size. all of this work is going to be done internally with moving walls around and building kitchens, et cetera. So there's not going to be much change at all with the look of the outside of the house, with the exception of putting in a egress door for the lower unit, so that there are two means of egress. But beside that, it's going to remain as is.
Do you have any more presentation, or should we proceed with our questions?
I think questions will be fine.
Okay. Ms. Brestrup.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. The planning board did not receive a copy of Jason's letter, and they didn't receive a copy of your response, but I did hear from the staff person for the Zoning Board of Appeals that the town engineer is satisfied with the explanations that he has received, and he doesn't have any further problem with this site plan.
Thank you. Mr. Schreiber.
So I guess one question I have is 8'8". I mean, how much, from where are you measuring for the 1'4"? Is it from the edge of the eaves or from the edge of the wall? I'm just, it's not clear. The eave, okay. Yeah. And it's just the back corner, right?
Yeah, it's just that back corner of the garage.
Could you use the microphone, please?
It's just the back corner of the garage. So it's this one corner right here, which is 1 foot 4 inches into the 10 foot.
Ms. Kruger.
Sorry, I always forget. I'm having a little bit of a hard time understanding what the rear elevation looks like. And we do have photos of the existing. When you say it's not going to change, is the existing window area adequate for the changed configuration? Or is that going to change? Or you don't have an elevation for the rear, or you do?
We don't.
You maybe could just tell us what.
There will be microphone, please, and if you could identify yourself. Sure.
I'm Jamie Cherawati, owner of Eagle Crest. We will be changing some of the exterior windows. I believe in terms of the elevation, it is a walkout structure, but there are windows that I haven't done the building code in terms of are they escapable windows. So if they're not, then we will be changing the windows on that side of the property.
Ms. Ford.
Just an observation about the general quality of light and air in that bottom unit. And has that been looked at and considered in all those front rooms? It looks like there's really only one tiny window in the kitchen, and all those rooms that are in the front there virtually have no windows.
The kitchen is going to be in the front. That is what you consider traditionally a basement type feel, but every other room in the downstairs right now currently has windows, full windows to the exterior.
Oh, okay. It just doesn't show any plans then.
Anyone want to?
Mr. Crowner.
So one of the reasons that we're looking at this is to help us understand how projects fit in with the community planning intent. That's part of this memo that we got. And I think that's why we asked to see it. At least that's why I'm interested in seeing this, even though it's not a site plan review project this time. So when you talked about how, I guess I'm addressing the board really, not the applicant. They talked about how they're creating a two-family home in an area that is intended for more dense use than other parts of town, and I agree with that. But to me, this feels like not, they're not creating a two-family home. The interior plans do not look like, for the lower level, do not look like a family home to me. So I think it looks like they're taking an illegal eight-person residence and making it a legal eight-person residence. That's what it looks like to me. And so
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
they're taking an illegal eight-person residence and making it a legal eight-person residence by making it 2 units, or theoretically 2 units. And so this is something that people all over town are struggling with, these houses that are turning into student residences, like boarding houses, and so we need to understand how these things happen, and imagine what the impact might be on the neighborhood, and figure out a way of addressing it through planning, through zoning, through the other steps that the town is taking. And so this is, I think this is illustrative of a lot of the problems that are going on. This area is like 2 houses down from Southwest, and it's definitely a student neighborhood now. The house across the street is for sale. I have a problem with this. I'm sorry, I have a problem with this, and I know there's nothing that we can do. But I'm glad that we have a chance to look at it and think about what the problems are.
Mr. Schreiber.
So I have almost similar but different. So one of the benefits of this process is, in fact, if it's illegal now, that there's a landscape plan and architectural plans that'll have to come up to code. So the fact that it's going through this view, I think, is a positive. So I've been emailing Chris a lot, because really asking why this was not by right, by site plan review, and it really misses by 1 feet 4 inches. So really, they could correct that deficiency, that 1 foot 4 inch corner, and it would become a by right site plan review project. So that, I guess that's the lens that I'm looking at it, is that there was a purposeful zoning change a couple of years ago to allow, by site plan review, 2-family houses in RG zones, so it meets every other requirement. And so I have a really hard time, we're the architects on the board, but we have a really hard time reading the floor plans because of they don't use conventional drafting conventions. But I think the site plan is, really quite handsome, and I think that it will, improve the property quite a bit. So I do think that there's really a huge advantage to, in fact, allowing 2-family houses in RG zones, is that then all of a sudden this group has some say in the site plan.
I have a question about the management plan, which is, what's the availability of services to the tenants in terms of like a building superintendent or is there someone available 24/7 if there's a problem? What's the Eagle Crest's policy?
Yes, actually, we provide 24-hour emergency maintenance. Myself or James or one of the other property managers, we're on call every single day of the year.
Thank you. Mr. Croner.
I agree that the site is going to be improved. I mean, I think there's no question about that. But I would also point out that, you talked about a few years ago, we asked town meeting and they approved allowing duplexes more easily in these kind of neighborhoods. But last year, we took a proposal to pull that back a little bit, and it failed. Failed, I don't think for the right reason, but so it's not something that is over and done with. We're still looking at it.
I think I would probably tend to agree with my colleagues to my left that by cleaning up what's there now and giving it sort of like a path to citizenship. If it is being used inappropriately, and I don't know that it is, this is a way to make it fit under the bylaw, which it comes under a management plan. Hopefully it'll be seriously well managed. If not, maybe the neighbors will make sure that it is. This is the kind of market that we have, and we are creating a second unit without really disturbing any property or pushing out into another neighborhood. If we are going to allow for this kind of housing, this is probably where it should go. And I think it's a little bit of a misnomer when we call it, single family, two family. What family means is a group of people living together. So it's not necessarily the picket fence image. That's just the language that we have. It's really going from one residential unit to two residential units, and those are small bedrooms. We can only assume who will be living there, and it will most likely be undergraduates, and that there is a huge need for that, and at least it's right next to the university.
I agree. I mean, I think that's a really good point. It's right next to the university. It's, the dimensional nonconformity, frankly, is one of the problems with the zoning code in general, and using setbacks and so forth to govern what's done instead of the general design and form-based characteristics of a project. And I also appreciated your candor in saying that the overflow parking was, for parents visiting their kids. You're not, there's no fooling anyone that this is student housing. I mean, it's right next to Southwest. So, that parking lot's going to fill up, and, we know how these things work, and that's, it is what it is. But I see it as appropriate for the use, and Mr. Schreiber's comments are well taken, that if it was, curing the dimensional nonconformity, brings it into a by right use. So, Mr. O'Keefe.
One of the biggest issues that we face all over town is the conversion of owner-occupied housing into student rental housing. But this, to me, doesn't seem like a case of that. That has already taken place here, and it's already student rental housing. And there are appropriate and inappropriate places for student housing, I think. And as some of my colleagues have already pointed out, a property that's literally a stone's throw away from Southwest, if you're going to add 2 more students to the town of Amherst, I'd rather see them there than I would see them in a house in North Amherst that's currently owner-occupied, for example. This is right on the edge of the university, and that is the type of, that's what the demand is highest in that area. The thing I appreciated most in seeing this plan, speaking to the parking a little bit also, is the fact that there were 8 parking spaces there and not, say, 10 or 11, which is sometimes what you see, a place that nominally holds 4 students, but it has 7 cars parked around at night and day. So the idea that we're not providing more parking than we're allowing occupants, I think is a positive aspect of this.
Mr. Rosnoy.
I'd like to also raise the issue of our sometimes whimsical references to our master plan. Doesn't this sort of fit in with our goals of increasing density in particular areas where it's appropriate? And wouldn't this be an appropriate area for the reasons that many of you have cited?
Mr. Crowner.
I agree with the idea of increasing density. I'm just questioning whether what this is really doing. I mean, is the interior plans that we were given shows a stairway still there? Is the stairway going to be removed? Is it really going to be a 2-unit place, or is it going to be a 8-unit place?
We were reserving this stairway area to be the fire separation. That's going to be fire separated with whatever the town building or the town or state building and fire codes. So I'm envisioning where that stairwell will basically be sheetrock in, whether it's whatever 5/8 sheetrock is on both sides, so it's fire rated. I don't anticipate that. Well, it won't be used as per what the fire department comes up with.
Further comments? Well, I'm not sure what the, do we have any abutters here? Okay. I'm not sure where we go from here. I think if we choose to, we can offer either a, 8 thumbs up or 8 thumbs down or some combination thereof. I don't think there's any, I don't know if we try and do this by a motion or by some kind of consensus. Is there, I'm open to suggestions on this from staff or Mr. O'Keefe.
So I was just going to say that my own suggestion would be that we let the ZBA make up its own mind. I think that we've got our thoughts and opinions, but it's not a case that's before us. So I wouldn't be inclined to offer a recommendation one way or the other to them, even though I do think that the project is appropriate and desirable. I think they should come to their own conclusion.
Yes.
I would go a little further and say, since we had the applicants come, it's our opportunity to make a recommendation. It can be a short and brief one, but I would be interested in recommending that we've reviewed this and have concurred that it is in conformance with the master plan, and that we felt that it was a appropriate location for this increased intensity of use from 1 unit to 2 units. We thought that the site plan and the parking as proposed, the things that we were just saying, I think it is appropriate to make that recommendation. We're not telling them what to do. We're saying in our review, this is the conclusion our board came to.
Mr. Rosner.
A question perhaps to staff. Does ZBA get minutes of this meeting as our report to them? Or would it be appropriate to recommend that? For example, can we just conclude this section of this meeting with a generally positive recommendation to the ZBA if that were the case?
Ms. Brestra.
Ordinarily, the ZBA would not get a copy of the minutes because they wouldn't be approved by you. If you wanted me to, I could give them a draft copy of the minutes or a draft copy of this portion of the minutes, but I think it would be my recommendation as staff would be that Ms. Kruger's suggestion is probably the most useful to the ZBA, to list, the fact that you have reviewed it and these are the things that you found, were positive aspects of this plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the negative if necessary.
And negative if you have
So
any negative.
I have a suggestion then. I would suggest that we paste the text of our minutes into a letter from the planning board to the zoning board. Or something like that. To be reviewed in the next packet and sent over. Yes, Ms. Brestra?
I believe the ZBA is going to be reviewing this on February 9th, so you won't have another meeting before then.
Okay.
So you would be kind of leaving it up to me to, phrase what you have said here. Of course, I have a recording of what you said, and I could write something up and then email it to you, and you could email me back your comments if you wanted to do it that way, or just, go with my rendition of what you said this evening.
Mr. Rosner?
I wonder if there's ever been something like a resolution so that we don't have to have a formal motion with a vote or something. A resolution of the planning board that the application, the language that Ms. Kruger just mentioned.
Under whereases, right?
Be it resolved that the town of Amherst planning board.
Well, is anybody?
This is
En banc.
True Family Day.
Let me ask this. Could we reach a consensus or a majority to actually have a motion and make a formal recommendation to the ZBA on this? Just a straw poll. Would anyone be opposed to such a thing?
I'm not opposed to a motion. I will vote against the motion, though.
Does anyone want to make such a motion?
I would make a motion that essentially we endorse the plan, but there's things that are incomplete. So I think the architectural plans and the elevations are, not legible. But I would actually move to endorse the plan if that's appropriate.
And perhaps subject to what I see it is, we would be going through the site plan criteria if not for that 1.5 feet.
Exactly.
I mean, as long as, I mean, I would urge the ZBA to use the site plan review criteria.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it really should be noted, it's 1.5 feet of the corner of the back of the garage. I mean, it's really like a technical foul.
Technical.
But that was a motion, so I'll urge you to just firm it up a little bit.
Okay, so I'll move to endorse this particular proposal and request or suggest that the ZBA use the site plan, no? Okay.
Mr. Keefe.
If we're going to do this, I guess I would suggest maybe you just put a period after the endorsement
Okay.
and stop there. The ZBA has to use the special
Right.
permit criteria, and I really, I don't, this is just opinion, but I don't think that we should be recommending what they do in considering the permit application. So we apparently think it's a good idea, so we're endorsing it, and I think that our role stops there.
But we
What
could
he
say
said.
why.
Sure.
Yeah. What he said. No, I'll move that the planning board endorse this proposal, period. And then the why?
Sure.
Okay, the why is that it, in our opinion, it meets generally the criteria of the master plan, that it would normally be allowed by right. I mean, it's very close to being allowed by right, except for the 1'4" corner of the back garage. So normally it would actually be a by right use. And that this, do I keep going? Okay.
Good enough.
That the site plan, which is really the primary consideration of the planning board, seems complete, well studied, and will improve the property. Period. Full stop.
Ms. Kruger seconds.
Read my mind.
We have a motion that's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much for coming before us.
May I just say one thing?
Yes, Mr. Carson.
I just following up on some of the concerns that Rob had, I think it would be worthy to look at the provisions for this type of thing in the future. Because I agree with him, I don't think this was what the intention was for a duplex.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can you tell me your name? Okay, 10 to 9. Next on the agenda is signing of decision for the Amherst Montessori School. If everybody's had a chance to review the decision.
Are you ready to sign it?
Did anybody have any changes or modifications to the decision?
Pass the decision around. I'm also going to pass the minutes to the chair.
Okay. All right, we have a letter.
You don't all sign it?
Oh, these are the minutes. We have a letter from the PVPC to John Musanti, on which several other people were copied, including myself. And it has to do with broadband access in the town. The PVPC is asking that someone from the town assist them in assessing broadband availability in Amherst. The question was referred to the IT department, who said that the broadband availability was fairly well shown on the, I believe, if somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it was fairly well shown on the, maybe it was the GIS mapping or some other type of resource that was already available that the PVPC could avail itself of. I have not seen the map verification instructions and other things that were sent to Mr. Musanti. But I thought I would just bring this to the board's attention. It's on the, and if does anybody have any comments? Broadband access in Amherst? For some reason, I thought it was available more or less everywhere in Amherst, but Ms. Brestrup?
There is a map. I think Mr. Weber received a copy of an email from Mike Olkin directing various people to look at the Mass Broadband Institute's website. And I can send this link to all of you, and you can look at the website and see if the plan for the town of Amherst comports with what you think is broadband access coverage. And if you don't, you can email me and tell me, what you think about whether it reflects reality or not. I think that if anyone is going to act on this, it's probably going to be John Musanti, since the letter was directed to him. But a copy was sent to the chair, and so we thought it was worthwhile to distribute it to all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Brestrup. Any comments, further comment? Okay. We have also a request a request for modification of 2012 Top 10 Resolve Number 7 regarding rail service to Amherst via the Central Corridor. Does anyone want to speak to that as I search through my papers? Yes, Mr. Schreiber.
So this is a follow-up from our last board meeting in which I communicated with the executive director and chair of PVPC our recommendation for the modifications to resolution number 7. And there was a response by Tim Brennan and then a response by Jonathan Tucker about Tim Brennan's response. And so really what we're strategizing is on the best way to get support for putting the Central Corridor on the PVPC's radar screen. And so mostly what we're talking about in those email exchanges is going community to community and talking, basically presenting what the case for the bolstering of the central, I'm sorry, I'm having a Rick Perry moment.
The train.
The train. Really what the case for is to put that on the radar screen of PVPC.
Okay, and we should all have a copy of that exchange in our packet. Thank you, Mr. Schreiber, for assisting with that. Are there any? Do we have any comment on that from anyone? Okay. Any topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to this meeting?
Yes.
Oh.
You first.
No, you first.
Mr. Rosnoy.
I don't know the procedure for this, but a while back we approved a plan for the restaurant at the corner of Route 9 and University Drive. And a part of that plan, as I recall, was some screening at the rear of the restaurant to create a visual buffer between the restaurant and the shopping center behind it. And the restaurant's now open. I'm very happy for them. But I don't sense that that screening was installed. And I wonder if we could get a report at our next meeting as to whether it has been or the plans are in place and it's a seasonal thing, or whether they have just ignored it. So that's a request that I have of staff, and if you can possibly just let us know at the next meeting what the status of that is. Perhaps they've installed it, and my own perception of what was going to go there is different, but I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Thank you. Yes, Ms. Kruger.
At our last meeting, Mr. O'Keefe suggested that we get comments about the Village Center rezoning to the zoning subcommittee, to add that to the consideration of the next effort to bring that forward to town meeting. And so I wrote a letter to the zoning subcommittee with my different points about the Village Center rezoning, and I made copies for the whole board, so I just thought I'd pass that out. I didn't exactly know where it fit on the agenda, if it was new business unexpected or old business unexpected. Just kidding.
Thank you. Sure.
Thanks, Connie.
Maybe I could just say, in trying to get my thoughts down in writing, it occurred to me, we really rely a lot on the zoning subcommittee on this major zoning issue.
And Connie, I'm sorry, I gotta wait till you get back to the microphone. Everyone wants to hear.
I know. As when I put my thoughts down on paper, I realized how much we've been relying on the zoning subcommittee to do the work on this really major zoning initiative. And so, see in my comments, I suggest that maybe we take that back to include more time in the planning board meetings to talk about the Village Center rezoning effort, so that if we are going to bring it forward for Springtown meeting, which I think we are, that we have time to really discuss that as a full board and not just leave the zoning subcommittee to carry all the water.
I am supportive of that as well. I think it's a little hard on all of us to have it come before us, you know, shortly before town meeting and be expected to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. I like the idea of having multiple shorter sessions on it. Mr. O'Keefe?
I fully support that notion as well, and I really appreciate the feedback from, the written feedback from Connie, and encourage the rest of my colleagues to provide any input that you might have. The earlier we get that in the process, the better. In terms of finding a mechanism to have the board give it more consideration, I guess I would suggest that we include it as an agenda item under new business in an upcoming meeting, perhaps our next one, so that we could have a more structured discussion of it rather than just our usual quick update from me as part of the zoning subcommittee report to the rest of the board.
Is anyone opposed to that idea of putting it on the agenda? All right. Chris, can we make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea.
I also put it in a letter a couple weeks ago, so yeah, it'd be good to have a discussion, I think. It'd be great. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Ford.
Just being new to all of this and not really up to date on the activity that has taken place to this effort, is there, I mean, I've been given all the various statutes and so on, but I'm wondering if there's any recent minutes, where you would direct me, what would be kind of the most efficient way for me to get up to date based on your committee activity?
Mr. O'Keefe.
I'm not sure how deeply you've dug into the material that's available, but if you haven't looked it over already, a great place to start would be the proposal that we had at last fall town meeting, which was Article 17 at that point. Okay. I'll warn you in advance that it's long and detailed, so there is a lot of information there, but most of the important stuff is in the first third of the document or so. So if you go to the town website, on the town meeting page, and it's probably other places as well, but on the town meeting page, the materials that reference Article 17 from last fall's town meeting. And if you want to know what we've been doing lately, our minutes from the subcommittee meetings are also available on the town website, and they're quite, they're detailed and accurate, and they're not tremendously long, just a couple pages per meeting, so there's good information there. And if you're up late at night and really looking for a way to put yourself to sleep, our meetings are also available on ACTV online on demand, so you could watch the meetings too.
So what I was looking for was maybe a little bit more focused, you know, if there was a meeting or two, or in the, you know, if there was anything specifically that
Sure.
I mean, obviously I can read through everything, but so if anything came to mind.
Look through our minutes. We've really we're early in the process. So our last meeting, which we don't actually have minutes from yet, but the meeting before that was the first time that we really had a big discussion of it. So that would be our mid-January meeting, whatever
Okay.
that one was. And the meeting that we had on January 4th was a public information, what we call a zoning forum, which is a meeting that we have twice a year to hear public input on our various projects under consideration. So the minutes from that meeting I know are available. We didn't really deliberate at that meeting, but we did hear a lot of comments from members of the community, and that represents a pretty good broad spectrum view of what people are thinking about this and what they've been telling us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other not reasonably anticipated topics. Any unreasonably anticipated topics? Okay. We have a new copy of the Planning Commissioner's Journal, which is always a good read. This one is on food, among other things. I highly recommend that you read it. So thanks to staff for giving us a copy of this, as always. We have the next item is the Keystone Project, invitation from UMass Department of Natural Resources Conservation to attend a training program at the Harvard Forest. This is a letter of January 13th from David Kittredge Jr. and Paul Catanzaro, both of the extension at UMass. We have an application form for participating in the Keystone Project, which, if anyone has better knowledge of this than me, please speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to try and wing it here. It looks like forestry, and there's an intensive 3-day training at the Harvard Forest. Where that is, I don't know. But presumably, if you contact them, they will be happy to get you involved. If you do take them up on it, though, you're volunteering to put in at least 30 hours of time on a forest conservation project of your choosing. It's a Thursday, April 19th, through Sunday, April 22nd. And it's in Petersham. Okay, you have to apply by March 5th. Okay, there's no other business. Any A&Rs? Mr. O'Keefe.
Sorry, just under new business, or maybe it's old, but I'll just remind my colleagues that further to an item that I mentioned last time around the upcoming elections for town meeting, the deadline for getting your nomination papers in is actually before our next meeting, so this is the last time I'll warn you about it. It's February 14th, Valentine's Day. Nomination papers have to be in if you wish to run for town meeting by February 14th.
And is it correct that you have to come to town hall during business hours and fill out a form, sign your name, and pass them in?
That's correct. You have to go to the town clerk's office downstairs at town hall and fill out a nomination paper, which requires just one signature, which can be your own. So you can do it right there at the town clerk's office, and you're done, and your name will be on the ballot.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any A&Rs?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Any other upcoming ZBA applications, Ms. Brestrup?
Yes, we do. I don't think I've told you about this one before. DP Doe is being sold or has been sold to a new owner, and they have had a zoning board of appeals special permit to operate to a certain time. In fact, they've been operating till a later time, and they are going before the zoning board of appeals now to have their hours extended to 3 a.m. and to continue operating as they have been operating under the new ownership. So is that something that you would like to review?
Only if food is provided. Okay. How about site plan reviews? Or
We
anything
haven't
coming
received
before?
any,
Nothing?
no.
All right, here we go with subcommittee report, which should be changed on the agenda to a singular because we only have one. Mr. O'Keefe.
I'll be brief in anticipation of our upcoming further discussion of Village Center rezoning at the next meeting. But we did meet tonight, zoning subcommittee did, and talked about Village Center rezoning primarily in North Amherst. We actually met last Wednesday as well, and had a discussion that was primarily focused on the map in South Amherst around Atkins. And that was last week's meeting. That was quite productive. We made some tweaks to the proposal that we had from last fall. And so we now have an updated map for South Amherst that's available now, current. That'll probably be changing further as we get deeper into it, but we do have a good current map for South Amherst now. Tonight, we just started talking about the map in North Amherst. We've got a couple of ideas floating around, but no real concrete proposals for change yet. We will be meeting again 2 weeks from now. On the 15th is our next meeting, and we'll probably dig deeper into the proposals for North Amherst at that point. And then obviously we'll have a deeper discussion at the board level at our planning board meeting that night as well.
Thank you, Mr. O'Keefe. Mr. Schreiber?
Could I suggest one thing for the zoning subcommittee to perhaps work on? And that's regarding the duplex that we just heard, and that's a definition of setback. Because our zoning bylaw does not define setback. And it's implied only in reading the definition of a front yard setback that it's the furthest projecting element in eave. But in many communities, there's exceptions given to both the eave and gutters. And so, really my personal opinion is that a setback ought to be measured to the wall and not to the eave. And I think that in the case that we just heard, that might even account for why it appears to be a non-conforming now, but perhaps it was conforming when it was built.
I'd like to point out that the zoning subcommittee does not have exclusive jurisdiction over proposing zoning changes, and that any member of the board is free to draft language and bring it before the board for a potential town meeting vote to change the zoning code.
I'll take that on.
You're welcome. Okay. Ms. Brestry?
I wanted to just mention that one of the reasons, Steve and I had several back and forth emails today about this issue, and I think one of the reasons that the previous building commissioner interpreted the zoning bylaw the way she did was because in certain instances you get involved with buildings being really close to one another, and if there are eaves hanging within the setback, you can run into a problem of not being able to get a truck, an emergency vehicle or something like that down an alley. And so that should be taken into consideration when thinking about defining setback.
Yes, Ms. Kruger.
I just wonder if it might make sense to just expand that a little. Maybe there's a category of things like that setback, 1 foot, 4 inch, that there could be either definitions or waivers for that would spare this board and the zoning board all of the work of having to review something that maybe could be allowed to go forward as long as the definitions were in line. So the eave setback is, other aspects of the dimensional regulations that could end up as equally absurd as
Yeah.
that you could look at.
And don't let me take this away from the zoning subcommittee if it's something you want to do.
No, we're happy to have help.
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe.
We have actually been pretty vigorous both last fall and this spring in trying to preserve the limited brain power and working capacity that we have for major efforts like the Village Center rezoning. And so we have a long to-do list of items that we've been sort of consciously conscious of the fact that we don't have the bandwidth to work on them. And so one approach you could take is to sort of put it in our queue and wait till we get to it, which might happen around the same time the university finishes the implementation of it.
I wouldn't want to set back your efforts.
Yeah. If you feel strongly about something and you've got some ideas, I would definitely encourage anybody who feels that way to come and talk to us. But I have no problem at all with people advancing things on their own initiative.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you for the subcommittee report and subsequent commentary. We have committee reports. The first is PVPC. That's you.
We meet again February 9th. I'm sure the main agenda item will be resolution number 7. But I will advance our changes at that meeting, but the full agenda has not yet been posted.
Thank you. CPAC.
That's Sandy.
That's Sandy. She's not here.
Sandy failed to make her scheduled appearance by video link. For
That's
the
right.
cruise ship.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt?
Yes, Mr.
I
Rosner.
have a question about the prior topic. At this meeting, Stephen, do you advocate for inclusion of our language, or?
Yes.
And Mr. Brennan's approach is just one vote amongst all, or how does this work?
It's a very tightly run organization where the chair, it's a, what do you call it, strong mayor form of government, where the executive director and the chair really have a, I don't know how to say it, but there's an executive committee, well, as it's put to the rest of the commission, the executive committee is where the work is done. And so really I think that they see the full commission meeting as being information only. So there really is not encouraged much debate and discussion on things that are presented to the commission.
Oh.
But we have been, I mean, this has been a year-long effort to change, to get Amherst Rail on the radar screen of their work priorities. And I think that,
I see.
I think it's working in other ways, but it's simply not appearing. If it appeared on that top 10 list, then on the annual report, they'd have to report on how they did regarding that, which is why we see it so important for it to actually be there.
I see. I was curious about the process. Thank you.
Yeah. But they're open to the public, and anyone is welcome to, to come to those meetings, but.
You need to bring a posse?
Yeah, exactly. We went last year with a posse.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Did you have any more?
Thank
No? Anyone else? Okay. Agricultural Commission hasn't met since our last meeting. That would be me. Transportation?
Transportation Task Force, what is it called?
Yeah, that's right.
Transportation Plan Task Force is by fits and starts getting organized. We attempted to have a meeting yesterday, but couldn't get enough people, so an organizational meeting is in the works.
Thank you, Richard.
Stay tuned. And apparently our own Ms. Brestrup has had extra work piled on as coordinating this, thanks to you.
It's very interesting work.
They always make the most efficient person the busiest, apparently.
That's what they say, right? If you want something done, go to the busiest person you can find.
That's it.
Okay. ARA,
No report.
Design Review Board.
I've submitted my citizen activity request, yes, so I think it's in process.
Thank you. We don't have any other boards and committees, do we? No.
Well, we will soon.
Okay.
It's a joke.
Is there something I don't know? All right, I don't have any report. Staff?
No report.
Adjournment.
All right.